2020 is over. Well, if you thought a mere number 1 was gonna make things better,
you had it wrong.
Because a year with no knack 3 in sight is another year in darkness. But don't you worry, because tonight is a night of celebration. Welcome to the most prestigious night in gaming, the Sober Scot Gaming Awards, where games get awarded for being fun, consumer friendly, and you know, the stuff that we actually play games for. Disclaimer before we get into this, I'm no Gandhi, so I've obviously no played every game that's came out, Hades, Half-Life Alyx, and Final Fantasy 42, just to name a few. But with that out of the way, let's kick it off with the award for Game for the Players, the category that aces delivering you bang for your buck, taking consumer friendly to a whole new level, just short of a blowjob. Pretty much to win this category, you just have to do the opposite of Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh fuck, I can't believe you've done this.
Before we get onto the winner, I've got to build up some suspense somehow, so I've got 2 honourable mentions, starting with a game that's been insanely overlooked this year, and that's Nioh 2, an absolute fantastic sequel with an intimidating amount of content. Seriously, I'd need to take a gap year just to create my character. Nioh 2 not only delivers an insane amount of content, but stellar brutal gameplay and progression alongside it. The only reason I've no completed it is that I'm a bitch, and to be honest, I have more pressing matters. Where the fuck is Knack 3? Joining Nioh 2 as an honourable mention is Halo the Master Chief Collection. Right, I know it's kinda cheating, but how can you argue with the amount of content you get? Not to mention the insane quality of that content, apart from that one. You know, forget that one actually. But now it is time for the winner, the game truly for the players, Ghost of Tsushima. One of the few games that actually lived up to the hype, delivering an absolutely beautiful open world filled to the brim with gratifying content accompanied with a great story, which was more than worth the asking price on its own. Never mind the completely free DLC added to the game after launch, with online game modes which has a surprising amount of replayability. Also, there's no microtransactions. But the best thing about this game is that I am 99% sure that this was just Sucker Punch flexing that they could do Assassin's Creed better than Ubisoft. Next award is for the most underrated game of the year. Pretty self-explanatory. Starting again with my honourable mention, Rogue Company. An incredibly underrated game due to its focus on fun and simplicity. Which is a shame because this game is an absolute blast, especially when playing with a group of friends. Games are fast paced and intense, but still very newcomer friendly, whilst keeping its competitive edge. And on top of all of that, it's free! There are many issues with the game, but I still highly recommend you give it a go if you're into multiplayer competitive shooters. But there is one game that surprised me, surpassing all expectations, deserving of the most underrated game of the year award, and that's Immortals Fenyx Rising. This game has seen some deserving positive reviews, but I still feel like this game didn't get the credit it deserved. Sure, the game doesn't try and reinvent the wheel, but neither does Crack, and I'm pretty sure people still love that. It's the perfection of its familiar, addicting gameplay loop that makes this game so great. All the elements of the game is fun. Immortals took all the boring elements of the Assassin's Creed games and yeeted them to absolute oblivion, embracing the bizarre elements of the games and focusing on delivering a fun, cohesive package. And as a self-proclaimed fan of fun, I appreciate this. Alright, on to Indie Game of the Year, but I didn't play that many. So, congratulations, Hades is Indie Game of the Year. Well done, mate. I do want to say honourable mention to Mortal Shell, which is Cold Symmetry's first game, and it is a pretty goddamn fun game if you like Dark Souls likes, and it actually feels like it captures some of the original magic of Dark Souls 1. Sure, it's not stellar, and the gameplay length is a bit short, but it still is a pretty fun game, and it did really impress me. Now, onto award for the best story, and disclaimer, I'm not a story guy, and I've not really played that many story games this year, unless you're counting Fall Guys. Firstly, my honourable mention has to be Yakuza Like a Dragon. Now, I've only played about 10 hours of this game, but so far from what I've played, the characters are phenomenal. Writing is incredibly sharp and witty. Also, the story has just had me captivated, wanting to follow the journey of all the characters. This is my first Yakuza game, and it's damn well impressive, even if it is a slow burner at points. Also, it's batshit crazy, and I love that. But you should probably get your pitchforks ready because it's time for Story of the Year. So the best story of 2020 award goes to Fall Guys.
I'm making sure.
Yes!
Not really, but I wasn't too far off, to be honest. I was emotionally invested in the Bean Man. So yeah, it's The Last of Us Part 2, the game that's all about revenge, murder and biceps, emphasis on the biceps part. The Last of Us Part 2 has got issues, but it doesn't stop it from delivering an intense and gripping story-driven experience. The quality of this game's storytelling can be incredible, and I can say without hesitation that The Last of Us Part 2 had the best voice acting, facial animations, and, well, just animation in general of the year. The Last of Us Part 2 was one of the only games I was actually playing for the story, as I actually cared for a few of the characters. Mainly Ellie and Joel, yeah, really just Ellie and Joel, to be honest. But from start to finish, the game had me wanting to see the conclusions of the characters. There were many aspects of the game that I'd preferred to be different, but The Last of Us is still the most I've been invested in a story this entire year, despite its problems. Next award is Best Multiplayer Game of 2020, which, when looking back, there's a surprisingly small amount of good multiplayer games that actually came out in 2020. So with that in mind, my honourable mention for this category is Star Wars Squadrons. The multiplayer gameplay of Squadrons is some of the most rewarding I've played. Online games are filled to the brim with intense battles, always requiring you to actually use your brain, deciding what systems to prioritise your power to, how to modify your ship, where to focus your shields, the list goes on. And that's not even mentioning mastering the movement of each ship type. The game has an incredibly high skill ceiling, especially when you suck at flying like me. That is probably an understatement. It just feels incredible to improve and learn the nuances of the game. Also, did I mention, it's fucking Star Wars? I still do feel like the multiplayer experience is a bit bare bones in terms of content and game modes, with ranked issues like players leaving games. But even with that, there's a solid multiplayer experience that offers a ton of fun, even for someone like me who really isn't into flying games. But with that out of the way, what is my multiplayer game of the year? It's probably going to surprise a few of you, but it's gotta be Rogue Company. As I mentioned earlier, this game is incredibly fun, with constant updates keeping the game fresh, bringing new maps, game modes, characters, and of course, skins. Because what is a free-to-play game without making your character look like a bank-robbing furry? The game just absolutely aces the basics, ensuring consistent fun. It can provide that high-stakes, intense gameplay without all the insane downtime that usually accompanies these games. This game takes the best aspects of other competitive shooters and streamlines them into an approachable, exciting, competitive experience. It's pretty fun. Grab your nearest Frank Reynolds because it's time for the Best Combat Award. And as a Scotsman, it should be no surprise that I'm a big fan of combat. So, for my first honourable mention, I've got to give it to the game that's all about stabbing. Ghost Runner, the game that is the complete opposite to the next two games that I'm going to mention, as it strips the game back to one simple premise. One hit to kill, one hit and you're dead. Because of this, the game forces you to always be moving, making every moment so intense as you could die in an instant. And goddamn, this game is pretty difficult, but deaths aren't as crushing as other games, as checkpoints are frequent, and more importantly, have you back in the action instantly, never having a moment of downtime, keeping you motivated and engaged. Also, the difficulty is fair, as enemies have telegraphed attacks and adhere to the same basic principles you do. The game has all the important elements of more challenging games, but removes some of the downsides, such as long respawn times, climbing up Mount Everest every time you die, just to have a chance of killing that same boss again. Whereas, in Ghost Runner, Mount Everest is the boss. Insane boss battle, by the way, fucking loved it. But even with removing those elements, the game still aces that incredible feeling of killing enemies and overcoming tough encounters. Plus, all the enemies in this game are a threat, because, as you know, you die in one hit, so you always have to be on your toes moving like a donkey. But donkeys aside, the combat is just absolutely fantastic. And the way parkour is mixed into it is truly
breathtaking.
My other honourable mention is Nioh 2, a Souls-like with an incredibly good gameplay foundation, with intense, difficult, but fair rewarding gameplay that the Souls-like genre is known for. But where Nioh excels is the amount of playstyles and complexity that the game offers, with insane skill trees, giving you new combat abilities and general stat buffs, on top of the iconic leveling seen in Souls-like games. But there's only one game that gives you an adrenaline rush like no other, with combat that is truly next level. My combat of the year for 2020 has to be Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal elevated the first-person shooter to a new level, making its own previous installment look like a game from a bygone era. Doom Eternal, through excellent enemy, weapon, ability and level design, has created a chess-like strategy game that plays out at 100 miles per hour, requiring you to learn the nuances of the game, mastering your weapons, abilities and how to prioritise enemies, compared to any other first person shooter where the learning curve consists of you shooting better. Once you start to utilise your kit properly and efficiently, you feel absolutely insane. But now, with all the awards that no one really cares about out of the way, what is my Game of the Year? What is going to take home the very first Sober Scot Game of the Year 2020 award? Jesus Christ, that's a mouthful. There is only one game truly worthy, and Christ, it wasn't even close. It's Doom Eternal. I've literally just gushed about the combat, but I mean it when this game is incredible, and it is some of the most fun I've had in a campaign in a long time. All the aspects of this game are fantastic. The music is easily the best of the year, the level design is sublime, the progression of gear and weapons is perfectly paced, the art style is fantastic, with some of the coolest backdrops you'll ever see, not to mention how incredibly unique all the areas feel. Oh, and aye, the parkour is fun and a nice break from the intense fights, and the Marauder is class, right? Shut it, you fucking casuals. The game really is insane, and I can't recommend it enough. It took everything great about the reboot and improved upon it. There is not a single person shooter that comes close to how amazing the Doom combat can make you feel once mastered. Unless they make a first person knack, then there'll be some competition. Doom Eternal is the perfection of the first person shooter, and it truly lives up to the Doom name, once again elevating the genre to greatness.